This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and for the first time in a while, I am delighted to be joined by trainer, manager, promoter Jon Pegg. Jon, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. A little bit rushed today. We've got a show tomorrow, first Grassroots show back, so that's been busy. Do you know what I mean? But we've done the weigh-in. Everyone's passed the COVID tests, so we got a show basically. It was a 6-fight show, and it's gone really well.
How good is it to get a show, like you say, back up and running on the grassroots scene?
Yeah, it's really good, but it's quite nerve-wracking after doing all the work and the tickets have sold well and the lads are ready to fight. Knowing one failed test could kind of really throw things into disarray. But yeah, it's good. It's good, and tomorrow we'll be back at it.
Obviously, trying to whiz through things. I know you're busy trying to sort out tomorrow's show. Let's just get straight.
Oh no, I'm good now, mate. Tomorrow's all sorted.
All right, sweet. Obviously, just going forward and moving on with Sam Eggington. Start off with his fight next weekend. Bilal Jikitu. I hope I've said that right.
If not, said it better than I could.
Just talk to me about why this fight for Sam, Jon.
Well, basically, Sam's at a stage now where he's on the edge of the world rankings. He's really kind of grown into himself as a fighter. If he can push himself up the rankings just a little bit more and sit tight at just 27, he could afford to sit. You know, look at the way Jack Cattrall has been so patient and sat tight, and he's been rewarded. If Sam can sit tight and get a few decent wins, who knows if the light middle titles, just say Charlo moved up to a big fight, there'll be a load of vacant titles. And when they're looking through for fights, they want to see people who have a fight and who are prepared to fight. So Sam's right at that point where he'd need a little bit of luck at the moment. But, you know, he don't need to be chasing big fights. You don't need to be chasing him. He's got a world ranking. He's got a reputation. So that's what we're doing. It's not an easy fight, but it's not the hardest fight out there either. Do you know what I mean? So he's got to be on top of his game. But, it's not a real kind of sink or swim as some of them are that Sam has to take. He's no Liam Smith or Ted Cheeseman,
You mentioned obviously what could be in store for Sam beyond this fight. Obviously, last time out we saw him operate at middleweight. Where do you see him actually pursuing his boxing career from this point on?
Oh, super welter. Obviously, while he's got that title, and if there's there's nice fights there that we like the look of, we'll take them because he's not small, but he's not big enough for middleweights. Like he says even Molina, who's not like a huge middle, he said he was just rock solid to try and shift, because he's been used to middleweight. And some of the middleweights are just so much bigger than him. So he's taking the opportunity. He's won a lovely bout. It's got him a world ranking. But yeah, the serious stuff will be at super welter. And to be honest, mate, every single check weighing he's done for these two middleweight fights, he's actually been inside the super welter check weighing limit. Like you've got so much on each check. He's never been nowhere near the middle limit. He's always usually just around the super welter limit. So, it's just opportunity knocks, isn't it? If you're 6 foot and you're not a weak kid, if there's a middleweight fight, it's the right fight, you can take it. Doesn't mean it where he's going to get really serious, and if something big comes, it'll be super welterweight, hopefully.
Just with this fight, you mentioned, it's an opponent where Sam will be a favourite, but he still needs to be on the top of his game.
He's a good sharp kid.
But just with kind of what you said in mind, is there that risk factor of another Hassan Moutinho situation where Sam was again the favourite and potentially just looking beyond him, and what was in store beyond that fight?
No, because there's a few factors there. One, you learn a big lesson off the likes of Hassan. Two, he hasn't got anything to look forward to at the moment. With Hassan, there was literally £100,000 payday 2 weeks after. If we didn't want to try and, pay back the Birmingham fans, really we should have just avoided it. Also, Hassan had a few losses on his record. He was a bit more unknown. This French guy's good. He's good. He's unbeaten. We know how good he is. But he's just, like I say, he's not a Liam Smith. He's not someone where you're going, oh my God, we've got to, if Sam's at his best, he'll do the job. But no, we've learnt the lessons. And like I say, there's no distractions. There's no big payday 2 weeks later that your mind gets drifted by. We've totally focused. We've worked hard. And yeah, and like I say, Hassan had a slightly deceiving record with a couple of early losses that allowed the eye to drift off the ball. This kid's unbeaten. He's got Sam's attention, and we know how dangerous he is.
John, with Sam as well, we know that the British Boxing Board of Control ordered a fight between him and Anthony Fowler for the final eliminator.
Yeah.
What Anthony tweet, you guys pulled out of that. How come you guys didn't want to pursue that? It would have been a final eliminator, obviously, for a bout with Ted Cheeseman or Troy Williamson, whoever would have held that belt after they fight.
Well, to be fair, Sam pointed out he's being told he's got to do a final eliminator for a title he won 6 years ago. And like, if a fight don't make sense, like, Anthony's pulled out against Kieran Smith, and the latest one, who was the other one he got eliminated with?
Hamza Shiraz.
Yeah, he pulled out of both of them because they didn't make sense for him. And like Sam says, how do I get up for an eliminator for a title that I won when I was 21? He wants to go forward. The only kind of domestic fight that really has any interest for Sam is the rematch with Cheeseman. The other stuff, he's like, like I say, to him, he's looking and thinking, no, I'm not even just fighting for a title that I won 6 years ago. I'm fighting an eliminator for the chance for it. And like I say, a fight's got to make sense both ways. Like, obviously, the fight made sense for Anthony, so he was raring for it. The same as the fight made sense for Hamza Shiraz and Kieran Smith, but it didn't make sense for Anthony, so he was like, well, why would I? Do you know what I mean? And, so... it is what it is. It's just you take the routes. We asked for the Cheeseman rematch, and it couldn't be made. And we asked, and it couldn't be made. And in the end, we says, well, fair play. Ted's got his route. He's going to do what he's going to do. Fair, no problem. You can, so sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. And Sam just says, I feel like I'm going back to when I was 21. In fact, before I was 21, he says, because I won it when I was 21. He says, why am I doing an eliminator? So, it is. So that's what that was about. And obviously Mick's giving Sam like a layout of plans that he wants to do, former world champions, getting top in the bill. Because, there was the risk we would have had to go onto Matchroom. And, as the Cheeseman fight showed, it was a very close decision. Sam doesn't get very close decisions, does he? So, we just chose to go with the path that we're taking. Mick Hennessy's got some great ideas. So that was what that was about, really.
John, it's interesting when you mention paths. Obviously, Sam's gone down a very different one with used yourself, and obviously Mick Hennessy in comparison to where Ted's gone since they both fought. Do you think they will ever cross paths again, or do you think it's very much the end of that rivalry almost?
I'm not sure, because like, it was offered, and Eddie said he made a great offer. And when it was refused, we just we don't dwell on it. I says to Sam, ask for what you want, but you can't spend your career chasing someone. I says, you make your own path. I said, you make your own path, and whatever happens, happens. I says, otherwise they've got like a power over you. You're chasing, like Junior Witter spent half of his career chasing Ricky Hatton, and he didn't really do anything. And then he won a world title anyway. Cal Brook and Amir Khan have kind of been playing tig and tag, chasing each other backwards and forwards, haven't they? He asked for it. He asked for it a lot. We got told in no uncertain terms, not going to happen. Ted took his path. He's got his route. I mean, look at his next performance. He looked fantastic against Metcalf. So perhaps he made the right decision. You know what I mean? You got to do what's right for you. So if it comes up and it got ordered somewhere, so I'm pretty sure if, when Sam lost to Bradley Skeets, there was no chance of a rematch. And I says to Sam, don't worry about that, make your own path. And then Sam won the European, made his own path and went past it and beat Frankie, who beat Bradley. And then all of a sudden, the person who Sam had lost to was asking him for a rematch. Do you know what I mean? It's like he was, I says, just see what happens. Have your own path. Don't worry about other people. Ask the questions when you need to ask the questions. But it's no good worrying, because you end up getting et up by it. You end up making bad decisions because you really want something. He would like it. If it happened, it would happen. If it doesn't, good luck to Ted. Crack on. Every time he looks good, it makes Sam look even better. Because, Sam, Ted against Metcalf looked sensational. Against Sam, it was 50-50. So if he does the same against Williamson, I said to Sam, every time Ted looks great, makes you look even better. So we try not to worry too much, mate.
What do you make of the Ted's fight with Troy Williamson?
Really good fight. I think Ted's going to nick it. I think Troy's a big puncher, and he is a big puncher, and he's a good finisher. But sometimes he lets rounds drift by, kind of with that puncher's confidence. And I think Ted's got a really good chin, and his game as a badger. So I think while he's letting rounds drift by, he might let them rounds slip. And then when he does clip Ted, I don't think he'll get him out of there. And then by the time he realises, fuck, I've let a few rounds slip by, he might have just slipped behind. So I think Ted's going to take it. I think Ted's toughness and recuperative powers will give him the edge.
You mentioned Bradley Skeet earlier on. Obviously, he's made his boxing return now, teamed up with Dominic Ingle. Would that be a fight you'd be interested in with Sam now, a rematch there, if it could be made?
Do you know what? If there was big money there and there was plenty of interest in the title, yes. Other than that, no. Do you know? One, we're not mad for revenge. You kind of met your own path. Like, when Sam got beat by Bradley, Sam went on to beat the guy who beat Bradley and then won the European. So it's kind of like, well, we've done what we need to do. And it's turned out that Bradley's actually a lovely kid. Sam and Bradley become quite good friends, helping each other out in sparring and stuff. Now, I'm sure if there was a big payday in a title, they'd both put the gloves on and go at it. But it's not one we pursue, because I got a lot of respect for Bradley, and so is Sam. And I think it's the same way. Even though Bradley's at light middle now and he's got a win over Sam, you haven't seen him calling him out. I don't think that's because he doesn't want the fight. I think it's because, like I say, when Bradley was fighting for the European, Sam rung up and says, I fight like that guy. I'll go down and give him rounds. They become friends. So if it was there, but we wouldn't chase it because, one, what are you chasing it for? To try and prove something from 6 years ago. Prove it with the results. And two, he's a really nice guy. Why do you want to chase someone who you get on with most of the time? There's plenty of guys you don't. So, we're not one for chasing fights. Sam makes fights hard enough as it is without chasing them as well. Do you know what I mean?
Just to move forwards onto Shakan Peters. Talk to me about him. What are you expecting to see from him next weekend?
Do you know what? Shaq's, he's got a little bit of nastiness about him that wasn't there before. He's coached Paul Coonahan. Give him a few reality checks after his loss. At top level, take your eye off the ball, you lose the fight. He was in front on points, narrowly. So he was in there with a world-class guy doing a good job, took his eye off the ball, and that's why they're world-class guys. So Paul's given him a bit of a reality check about certain aspects of the pro game, and Shaq's got a bit more nastiness about him. He's kind of like, he wants to get people out of there. Like when he fought Jermaine Springer, who's a good kid, Shaq could have kept it on the end of his jab like he did with Chad Sugden. And when he clipped Chad Sugden, he just boxed. But when he clipped Jermaine Springer, he went after him. And he says, I got to get people out of there. So he's got this fight. It's not it's a kind of a tough marking time fight. It's not a big test, but it's not an easy fight either. The guy's had more wins than losses. And if he can do the similar kind of performance he did against Jermaine, show that bit of spite to go with all the other stuff he's got. Mick has told him November the 13th he wants him in a good title fight. No time to waste. There's no miles on the clock with Shaq. You know what I mean? But Mick wants him in a good title fight November the 13th. And if he shows what he showed against Jermaine Springer, that is the plan on November the 13th.
Whenever I've spoken to Shaq since the Craig Richards fight, he's played down a potential rematch. He's not been there calling him out. He'd obviously he'd take the rematch, but he's not focusing on it. Same as the Sam and Ted situation.
We ask about it, and then we don't focus on it. It's not healthy for a boxer. They end up thinking about that guy when they're fighting other people. If it comes, it comes. If they want the rematch, we'll take it. If we ask for the rematch and it come up, they take it if the money was right. But if it's not going to happen, going crazy on social media and calling it out, it's unhealthy in the long run. You end up focusing on that guy. You end up not focusing on your own career. You end up missing opportunities because you've got this mindset, and it doesn't get any better when you're thinking like that. It eats you up. So, and that's how we are in the gym. Just get on with the career and make a good career. And if you do the good job good enough, that rematch will come. And if it doesn't, let your result prove the points. Do you know what I mean? So, again, you'll see with Shaq and with any of the other lads, yeah, a career's not one fight, is it? You know what I mean? It is what it is.
John, also a word on Casey Benjamin as well. Once again, what are you hoping to see from him come next weekend?
I'm hoping to see exactly what we've seen in the last fight. Casey should be a poker player. You never see his face change, whether he's being hit, whether he's hitting them, when he just doesn't. He's cold as ice. But what was not a problem, but for us, we wanted to get it fixed, was sometimes he was content to win on points with guys that he could maybe get out of there. So before the last fight against a good kid in Martin Harkin, who was just coming off a knockout of James Moorcroft, we said to Casey, you're on TV. If you want to stay on TV, you've got to show us what we know is in there, what we've seen as an amateur, what we've seen in the gym. And he went out with a bit more nastiness. He went out, he was still his usual slick self, fast hands, but he wanted to get him out of there. Whereas usually Casey's quite happy to box, make a miss, be smart, and be slick. And now he showed a little bit more nastiness. And you know what? I think he enjoyed it. I think he enjoyed the early finish and the plaudits from getting a good, tough kid out of there. You know, that lad went the distance with Michael McKinson and got up from a few knockdowns. So I think Casey enjoyed that bit of plaudits. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more of a slightly nastier, a bit more ambitious for the stoppage Casey Benjamin. And I think it'll make for good TV.
John, just final topic I want to get your thoughts on is obviously Sky's recent announcement this week of the role that they'll be looking to play in the boxing market, obviously teaming up with Boxer, with Wasserman, with the Sauerlands. Just kind of get your thoughts on their announcement, their shows and the fighters and what they'll be looking to do in the sport now.
Well, the good thing is they've already shown that, they've teamed up with Boxer, Ben Shalom and his company. They've got guys from Wasserman. They've signed up Hennessy's two, I was going to say guys, two boxers, Savannah Marshall and Huey Fury. So it's looking like, I don't think Sky want to be beholden to one person anymore. I think they realise that can cause a bit of an upset. And, it's a big TV company back in there. Matchroom are still there because they're with DAZN. So basically, we've just added like a third or fourth TV promoter into the mix. For guys like myself and our gym who take proper fights, great. All my lads have done most of their stuff by taking hard fights on TV and shocking people. To us, it's just another outlet. I've already had some of the guys from Sky ring me up and say, can we do some work? Because we've had great pleasure in the past putting your guys in title fights because we know they'll take them. And obviously I'm like, of course. So fantastic. More outlets for boxing, more chances for guys who might not get their chance on TV to get their chance on TV. Because look at the variedness that they've signed already. The likes of Jermaine Brown and that. Jermaine Brown's a fantastic fighter, but he might have been stuck at the York Hall for another 5 or 6 fights. Now he can launch himself on TV. So I think it's great. And, more shows for you guys to go to, more press conferences. Everyone's happy, and I've got no doubt they'll bring some big fights from the States back. And I think they're going to have a different business model because obviously what they've done worked, but now Matchroom are going to keep that kind of model because that's their model. So I think Sky are going to do something a bit fresher. I think they're going to use the boxer tournaments, the ultimate boxing tournaments, which I think, as long as they're not overdone, are great. I think prize fights got overdone in the end on Sky. But I think those tournaments, say 2 a year, I think they're fantastic. So I just think it's really exciting. There's good people there who are working, who have worked with us all before. So what's not to like? Do you know what I mean? I think there's nothing there that's not to like. Competition amongst big promoters for the smaller guys in good fights is great for the smaller guys. If the smaller guys flourish, the bigger guys have to take a few more risks. They have to put better fights on. They have to give the smaller guys chances. The boxing flourishes. I just, and also competition makes people work harder. If there's one person, they take the foot off the brake because they're in charge and it's all theirs. They've got two competitors trying to outdo them. They suddenly do it back, and the competitors try and do better than them, and then they're trying better than them. And in the end, the paying public are getting great shows. The lads are getting good fights, and we find out who can fight. I just think it's really, really good.
With Sky's announcement, John, when you look, obviously, you've got BT with Frank, obviously, Matchroom with DAZN. Looking at Sky now, will this be...
Don't forget Channel 5, mate. There's some good
Channel
fighters
5,
on there.
with yourselves, with Mick, sorry. Just kind of looking at the promoter scene and the different networks involved. With Sky now, is this a slow, not necessarily rebuild, but process to kind of show where they want to go in boxing, or will they immediately slot back into how things were previously?
No, I think you're right in the first case. I think there'll be a slower rebuild. I don't think they're going to rush in. I think they're going to make it work, and I think they're going to make good connections. I think they've got a promoter that, because that promoter's not got their own huge stable, they have to, like how it kind of used to be, but without kind of the promoters really ruling the shows. I think Sky are going to have a heavy hand in the shows, but allow people to have their chances. So it's not just like, you've got 10 shows, do what you want. It's going to be like, there's a couple of shows. If you don't do something good, the next guy's going to get them. You imagine if Steve Woods gets some shows, gets the chance to put some TV shows on, because Steve puts fantastic shows on. Steffi Bull packs them out. Carl Greaves does some great shows. Tommy Owens with me in Birmingham. We've packed that out tomorrow. And if we got the chance for TV, but that says you've got to put good fights on, we'd be putting some damn good fights on. Because when Matchroom, etc., have come to Birmingham and says to me, well, your guys didn't sign with us, but if you put them in good fights, they can get on the TV shows. They get put in good fights. So who knows how it's going to go? And imagine what them guys who have been working so hard to get them chances, imagine what they'll do when they get the chance. They'll put some absolutely fantastic fights on. There might not be the huge names, but boxing fans would, I believe, rather see two decent names in a fantastic fight than a huge name in a blowout. You're a boxing fan. Tyson Fury, one of the pound-for-pound best in the world, against Otto Wallin, or Sam Eggington against Ted Cheeseman. Which fight do you want to watch? Do you know what I mean? As a boxing fan, I'll be honest, Tyson Fury would probably rather watch Sam Eggington against Ted Cheeseman than him beating up Otto Wallin. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying, and that's what these guys will put together. They might not be the biggest names, but they will be great fights and lots of them. And perhaps I'm being optimistic, but you've got to be optimistic in boxing, otherwise you'll just bury yourself in a hole in the garden and say, don't bother me ever again. I might be being a bit optimistic, but this is a chance for some really good stuff to happen, and I'm hoping it will.
John, we will leave that there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you, first time in a while, like I say. So thank you for speaking to me, and thanks for speaking to Boxing Social.
Andy, a pleasure as always, mate. Have a great day.